Did you ever consider what would have happened if any of these substances were given to, say, unwitting people?
Oh, I don't remember having considered that specifically. A hostile agent of another government?
No, I mean,
think that was probably one of the things they had in mind.
I mean, testing it out on an American citizen.
I guess I must seem very, very cold-blooded about this, but I don't recall ever having been very much preoccupied with that issue.
You know, it was a weird week for me.
That's okay. It was a weird week for me too. Anybody in the comments? Did you guys have a weird week? Let me know in the comments if you guys had a weird week. Okay, so the very topic of mind control, the interest that somebody might have in controlling or influencing your mind. And I'll start out with a couple Bible verses. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Think on these things. Romans 12:2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, clearly God, the one that created us, and he created us in his image, the Bible says, and he created us to have dominion over the earth, and you could argue, well, yeah, this new technology just further enables us to continue that dominion. But the Bible tells us, and I think that we all inherently know, that our mind, our brain is a sacred and intimate space. And we are so dumb compared to how we used to be. Like in the old days, when you were bored, you know what you would do? You would read a book. You might even write a book or learn a language, or build something. And you didn't have access to these networks of just constant entertaining distractions that, so it's like in the one life that you had to live, even though you could say, well, the lifespan was shorter back then, but these people were actually they would be entertained by learning and by growing in wisdom. And, when you apply that to faith and to things like virtue and to living a Christ-like life, before we were constantly bombarded by all these distractions, it was, I think, a lot easier to abide by this Philippians 4:8, to focus on things that are pure and lovely and of good report. Now, don't get me wrong, there were still temptations and distractions back then. But you see how this world that we're in, and as we've developed and progressed in the fallen world, this is what the devil wants us to focus on. It's not what's good. It's not what's pure. It's not what's holy. No, it's just what's popular. It's always the things of this world. And it's just this constant distraction that we got to be under. If you're trying to live a good, modest, pure, God-honoring life, or if you're not and you're surrounded by this, the worship of celebrities down here, sports for the men, you got soap operas for the girls, so that you can just sit back and waste your whole life just being distracted and entertained by other people's creations, never having an impact, never having a contribution. Here's some billboards just right up on the side of the street. Next time, use ashleymadison.com to find your running mate. Life is short, have an affair, And so here in the fallen world, it only gets harder and harder to actually keep our thoughts in the right place. The devil's not the only one that has an interest in your mind, though. As it turns out, and as history shows, tyrannical governments, there's a lot of history pointing to governments investing into the study of the ability to control people's minds, right? And the first thing that comes to people's minds, I'm sure, is mkultra. mkultra, and I just took this off Wikipedia, by the way, and I know you guys, yes, it's just Wikipedia. The reason I do this is because I'm trying to reach out to the skeptics and to the people that otherwise wouldn't look into this kind of stuff. And I just find that most people find Wikipedia to be credible. I find that when I show people stuff in Wikipedia, they're like, oh, okay, well, it must be legit then. Project mkultra was the codename of an illegal human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. The experiments were intended to develop procedures and identify drugs such as LSD that could be used in interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. So just to be clear, this is Wikipedia saying that the CIA was engaged in illegal activities that involved brainwashing and psychological torture using LSD and other methods. mkultra used numerous methods to manipulate its subjects' mental states and brain functions, such as the covert administration of high doses of psychoactive drugs, especially LSD and other chemicals, electroshocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, and verbal and sexual abuse, in addition to other forms of torture. Can you just imagine that? So how crazy is this? Moving on. mkultra was preceded by two drug-related experiments, Project Bluebird and Project Artichoke. It began in 1953 and was reduced in scope in 1964 and 1967, and was halted in 1973. It was organized through the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence and coordinated with the United States Army Biological Warfare Laboratories. The program engaged in illegal activities, including the use of U.S. and Canadian citizens as unwitting test subjects. You're literally talking about the government here abducting people. Right. Like, they had different programs. They would like lure men in with fake prostitution. They would literally abduct children and just
of the mentally ill.
Take advantage of mentally handicapped people, homeless people, and anyone that they found to be easy targets, or anybody that they thought would be useful to whatever experiment or program it was that they wanted to enlist them into. And so, dude, you're talking about think about that. You might get abducted in a dark alley, right? But instead of ending up in some serial killer's house who's going to Jeffrey Dahmer you end up surrounded by all these people in suits, and doctors' things and respected pillars of the community. And they're sitting here and they're putting this kind of stuff on your face, and literally just conducting torture on you. And it's just like such a horrifying reality, that Clockwork Orange, And this is the thing too, that we're talking about 20 plus years back in the 1950s or whenever, 1950s, 1960s. This was exposed and leaked, right? And the only reason we know about it is because it's one of the few things that got exposed. And the CIA, they already destroyed the vast majority of the evidence. Almost all of the information and paperwork, and literature and results and tests and stuff like that regarding to this mkultra was deliberately destroyed by the CIA.
Most of what was left was like just financial records. And I do want to point out, it's crazy. They made a lot of these victims literally pay for this treatment. Some people, they obviously can't find all of the victims that were affected by this, but there have been some that either they or their families started like lawsuits, and all that they were awarded was what they had to pay for this so-called treatment. It's just crazy, and it's these reputable doctors, so they felt special, oh wow, you're treating me.
Oh man, it's so sad.
It really is.
But there's no way to know how dark it actually got, though, because the very little evidence that we have, and again, most of it was thrown out, and so much of what was revealed, I think it goes into it here in the slides pretty soon, but there were FOIAs, Freedom of Information Act requests or something like that. I think the last one was in 2018, where we got some more info on this whole MK Ultra stuff, but so much was redacted that, like usual, it just became a pointless, information where you get to kind of read between the censor blocks. Okay, anyways, let me just keep going. And by the way, as you just read here, Canadian citizens, this was in America and Canada. MK Ultra's scope was broad, with activities carried out under the guise of research at more than 80 institutions. Think about that, 80 different institutions. Again, as you're talking about like serial killer weirdo kind of like human centipede kind of stuff. But it's the government, and it's being done in well-funded institutions, including colleges and universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The CIA operated using front organizations, although some top officials at these institutions were aware of the CIA's involvement. And these are the ones that are going to put other people in jail. Secret detention camps in areas under American control in the early 1950s in Europe and East Asia, mostly Japan, Germany, and the Philippines. The CIA created secret detention centers so that the U.S. could avoid criminal prosecution. The CIA captured people suspected of being enemy agents and other people it deemed expendable to undertake various types of torture and human experimentation on them, again, including sexual molestation and rape. The prisoners were interrogated while being administered psychoactive drugs, electroshocked, and subjected to extremes of temperature, sensory isolation, and the like to develop a better understanding of how to destroy and to control human minds. How messed up is that? And that's what your tax dollars were paying for back then. In fact, that's what the victims' tax dollars were paying for.
Right.
They were paying for the right to be, tied down to a chair. And like you said, though, some of these guys, they probably felt, it's sad, there was probably a little Stockholm syndrome going on.
No, there was like this one lady, a while ago, I watched this like little documentary, and like she even was saying like she was so scared of the doctor, but just felt like he was her only hope because he was this reputable doctor. Okay. MK Ultra was first brought to public attention in 1975 by the Church Committee. And the Church Committee is just because it was led by this guy named Frank Church of the United States Congress and Gerald Ford's United States President's Commission on CIA Activities within the United States. That's a heck of a name. Investigative efforts were hampered by CIA Director Richard Helms' order that all MK Ultra files be destroyed in 1973. And this is, even that's in Wikipedia. The Church Committee and Rockefeller Commission investigations relied on the sworn testimony of direct participants and on the small number of documents that survived Helms' order. In 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request uncovered a cache of 20,000 documents related to MK Ultra, which led to Senate hearings. Some surviving information about MK Ultra was declassified in July 2001. In December 2018, declassified documents revealed that the CIA made 6 dogs run, turn, and stop via remote control and brain implants as part of MK Ultra. So again, you're talking about all the way back then, they successfully were putting brain implants in dogs. So things do come full circle, huh? So the mind control was more than just these like experiments, on these unwitting people, right? But there was actual, even all the way back then, they were already developing these technologies to literally control people's minds. Here I just say MK Ultra 2.0 because here's an epiphany for you. Are we all being subjected to MK Ultra programming now? Consider these experiments regarding the mind with MK Ultra like something you'll hear a lot, especially, in these truther circles, is the idea of trauma-based mind control, right? And trauma-based mind control, which is probably the most despicable of any form of mind control, even though it's all bad, I guess. It's akin to like an abusive husband, right? Or an abusive dad who just beats the crap out of you when you don't behave the way that they want to instill this like certain behavior pattern in you just because you're afraid of getting hurt. Well, it times that by 1,000,000, right? And again, with all the evidence, destroyed on this, it's hard to procure real good information about MK Ultra, especially as time goes on. Like it's hard for me to find anything online to research anymore. Stuff I was, all the resources, a lot of the references and resources that I used to go to research this kind of stuff, just in recent years, like can't even be found anymore. Right. It's all been like censored off the internet.
A lot of people believe that some of the most popular, famous celebrity pop stars and celebrities are victims of MK Ultra style mind control, which is more than reasonable. So apparently there's this thing called monarch programming where they'll like turn these girls into what they call sex kittens. And this is really messed up. Like, and I don't even know how much of it is true. Like, it's hard to kind of sift between what's provable but most of this is based on testimony of people that claim that they were victims of it. They talk about how like one day you'll just be getting tortured and the next day you'll go to Disneyland and you'll go back and forth from being treated like a princess to being treated like a piece of crap. And it creates this like split in you. And then like they would figure out ways that they could use trigger words and stuff like that.
My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice!
And I feel like we're all under mass MK Ultra right now. Think about it. There's, all day long on TV and on the news, we're getting fed this trauma, right? And we're always being told, like we're always being reminded of these hurtful and painful things, not to mention just the way that this, new tech and social media works and the way that...
Well, and everyone's like triggers and fragile mind states. I mean... And
and the drugs,
right?
And don't forget
drugs.
that with MK Ultra, the big thing was they would use LSD and drugs, and and now think about the hippie revolution. We just read about all this crazy stuff that the CIA did, right? Regarding like using LSD and drugs to, once people are under the influence of these drugs, to then suggest things through them and hypnotize them and all this kind of stuff, right? And then during like this hippie takeover, rock and roll, British invasion, that whole era of time, the CIA was also involved in a lot of the big music festivals. That's also well-known knowledge, and that acid would just be getting passed around, and that CIA people would be there studying people. So now, instead of just having people in these, little detention camps that are set up like we just read about, now you have whole crowds of thousands of people that are all subjecting themselves to the mind control. And don't think that the lyrics weren't filled with all types of messages that they want to control your mind with. Do you think it's a coincidence that every single song on the radio or every single song that happens to be popular happens to reinforce the same ideals of, promoting this?
Well, I mean, like, look at Robert Hunter. Like,
who's that?
He wrote songs for the Grateful Dead. I mean, like, he was in with the CIA. Like, they were literally supplying LSD for this whole new, like, hippie culture era. Like, and yeah, they were studying them. But I mean, Robert Hunter was like working with the CIA and obtaining all of the LSD from them. I mean, maybe not all, but most.
So at
least.
Yeah, and I suppose that like you look now, everybody's popping pills, and you look at these like satanic music videos, and everything's hypnotic. I've had the thought before myself, especially as a musician. I know how to actually play guitar and like play instruments and sing and write music. I actually went to college for one semester, but that I did major in music. But it's interesting when you think about music, like why do we respond the way we do, right? And to music, like to this sequence of sounds and like to these, random variations in melodies, why does it make me feel a certain way? Well, they say that that your appeal to rhythm is based off your heartbeat. Your whole life beats to a rhythm, right? And that like for whatever reason you can identify with, a good beat or a good measure, or meter in a song. And then you take like this modern music, this electronic music that anyone can do. You put an artificial beat on there. And what you have now is you have an absolutely perfect BPM, right, of artificial noise that's repeating on a perfect cycle. Now in natural, real music, the type that David played, the type that I play when I play my guitar, there is a small, if you're a good musician, an undetectable level of human error, where the beat will never actually be perfect. It's always going to be off by a little bit, because that's the human touch. But this new music that's being produced has the ability to be perfect. It's mechanical in that sense, That's why I think you can listen to it and kind of go into a hypnotic kind of state, When you combine that with, that type of music that puts you in that suggestible state, and then you consider what kind of lyrics that go with it. Like that's a form of mind control itself. Like that's not too far off from the MK Ultra thing.
Kids listening to it, like literal children. who are impressionable.
You know, I think that when you combine all those things, like the constant promotion of fear, the promotion of drugs, the literal subliminal messaging and all the symbolism and messaging that's coming at us, I almost feel like we're participants in a big giant worldwide mkultra experiment. It's not even an experiment, it's more like the experiment's done. Now they know what works and now it's being done, and it does work. Could you ever believe like the stuff that's going on right now? Like, dude, seriously, 10 years ago, I would not have believed you. I would have debated you and laughed at you if you said, yeah, we are in 10 years, like literally like kids are going to be getting, sex reassignment surgeries and parents will get arrested if they try to stop it, and that kind of stuff. So
like
it works.
This is the story of a 30-year search by U.S. intelligence agencies to perfect mind control. The search would be endless. From brothels, an agent says, we learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom, to the mystical rites of a magical mushroom ceremony performed by an Indian shaman, to a Spanish bull ring. The bull has had electrodes implanted in the brain and is controlled by a scientist. There would be victims. One intelligence agency tried to peel this man's mind back to reveal its deepest secrets.
I lived through it. I lived.
This man worked on some of these programs. He would write of his work, it was fun, fun, fun.
We are not professing to tell you the complete story of these activities. We are professing to tell you the complete story that we know.
Right.
But these records that we've uncovered don't tell the story, they tell pieces of it.
But at one point, intelligence information received from Switzerland said that Sandoz Laboratories was about to put 100 million doses of LSD on the open market. And it caused enough concern within the agency that the United States was prepared to buy the entire supply. History will judge the role of the CIA and other intelligence agencies in unwittingly contributing to the counterculture of the 60s through their intense interest in LSD and other hallucinogenics. The argument can be made that the CIA helped usher in the age of Aquarius. Dr. Monroe, what do you think the Army Chemical Corps was looking for in all of this testing?
They were looking for an incapacitating agent, an agent that would not harm the person permanently, but would incapacitate them temporarily. That seemed like a humanistic way to wage a war.
He would give the patient intensive electric treatment in order to make the patient regress deeply, become forgetful, and then he would attempt to implant new ideas in the mind of the patient.
In other words, brainwashing.
Exactly, that's a very good comparison.
Brainwashing.
Yes.
That was a bad trip. The pain was so excruciating, felt like somebody was sticking me with 1,000,000 pins, just everywhere. Oh, it just... Ow.
You want to stop for me?
I walked around.
You want to stop?
Oh, I can talk. I lived through it. I lived through it. I lived through it.
These 6 things doth the Lord hate. Yea, 7 are an abomination unto him: a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 16 to 19. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 9. For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. Luke chapter 8, verse 17.